Thomas. It's 11 pages in a day. Let's go. Perhaps the most important question, most important point in this quotation is the fact that Yeshua is speaking only of the environment of the seeds, not the seeds themselves, but they are without defect, perfect. In this way, Yeshua is telling us what kind of inner and outer environment we must create for our spiritual progress. Our inner perfection means nothing if we cannot manifest it, for that is the sole purpose of our being here in the world and undergoing the process we call life. Damn. I'm going to read that one more time. It says, our inner perfection means nothing if we cannot manifest it, for that is the sole purpose of our being here in the world and undergoing the process we call life. Some fell on the road. The birds came and gathered them up. The constant traffic moved them around and prevented their taking root. Busyness is perhaps the worst possible environment for spiritual progress. Activity is necessary for any growth, but busyness is constant involvement with external factors and short-term goals. It is a trivializing of the human being. However, much others may admire the busy person. Some people are always on the go to cover up the void and discontent that would impinge on their awareness if they allow themselves to become still for even a moment. Others are chronic worriers and busybodies because it amuses them and occupies their idle minds. In contrast, there are those whose professions or situation in life demand continual dedication to outer action. If it would be suggested to them that they should change professions or situations, they will be indignant, insisting that their activities are indicative of their being responsible and conscientious regarding their duties. That to do otherwise would be to be selfish or slackers. Running in their self-satisfied hamster wheels, they will never get anywhere, because the birds of constant anxiety and outer demands preclude any possible interior growth. They are so busy serving humanity, they have no time to fulfill the sole purpose of humanity. They think the world could not manage without them. But as de Gaulle remarked, the cemeteries of the world are filled with indispensable people. Any of these people could stop the traffic and shoo away the birds at any moment if they wanted to. That seems interesting. Others fell on a rock, did not take root in the soil, and did not produce ears. The road was sore. Remember, Yeshua is speaking at a time when all roads were dirt tracks, except for some of the Roman roads that were paved with stones, and at least had a potential for growth. But there are environments, internal and external, that simply give no possibility of sprouting. They are the rocks. In early Christian documents, we find lists of professions or situations in life which prevented some from becoming a Christian. These lists were not based on the idea that those professions or situations were sinful, but rather on the fact that they rendered those involved in them incapable of spiritual life. Such situations do exist. I do not see any need to list them because it would be impossible to make a complete list, and a little thought with this sense reveals what they are. It is only wisdom for us to continually evaluate our inner and outer situations and ask the question, is this conducive to spiritual life, or does it contradict or stagnate spiritual life? Oh, that's really good. When I was 18 and searching fervently for truth, I attended a church meeting in the summer. One of the ministers was a most unusual man with great experience in the spiritual quest. On the final day of the meeting, he asked to speak with me. We went and sat in the main auditorium. Without preamble, he opened his Bible and read, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty." This is a reference to Psalms 91:1. Then he spoke briefly about the necessity for me to always check my situation to make sure I was really under the shadow of the Almighty. His counsel was prophetic because I was from there to another state where I got a position in the office of what we then called a radio preacher. This man was heard throughout the United States and even in some foreign countries, but he was a crook on all levels. After a few days, I sat at my desk and asked myself straightforwardly if I was under the shadow of the Almighty, working in such a place. Of course, I was not, so although it was a very high-paying job, I quit. Ray Bradbury gave a talk at a university writing class in which he told the students that if anything in their life, including some person, was blocking their becoming writers, they should get rid of it immediately. He further said that aspiring writers should get divorces if need be. Everybody chuckled and thought that was cute. But what if he had enunciated that principle in relation to spiritual life? He would have been branded a fanatic. Nonetheless, it is true that we must ruthlessly render our life if it presents status, hinders, or prevents spiritual life. As Swami used to say, do or die, but you won't die. I like that. Others fell on thorns. They choked the seeds, and worms ate them. Some environments are too agitated or busy. Some are simply impossible for growth. And then there are those in which the elements of the environment completely overshadow and distract the seeker from the quest. These are the thorns. Sometimes they are distracting by the inherent nature. Sometimes the seeker is too susceptible to their influence or effect. But however it may be, the quest becomes crowded out of the mind and heart, and the worms of distraction and attraction annihilate the upward impulse and the end of the journey for that life. In how many lives has the same happened to us? Thorns take many forms, some unpleasant and some painful. It seems a necessary part of each one's story that temptations must arise to reveal the depth and quality of our aspiration. Infinite is the number and variety of the thorns that snag human beings and stop them on their upward striving. This is especially true of those that have turned to spiritual life more from frustration and disappointment than from a real desire to know the Creator. Inevitably, it happens that some greatly desired object is, at last, seemingly offended to them. But to have the desired thing, spiritual life must be laid aside, and it usually is. Sometimes the distracted aspirant really gets what he wants, but usually he never gets rid of it, or is taken from him after a short while, and he ends up with nothing. Interestingly and tragically, such a one never turns back to the search for higher life, but passes in his life in desolation, almost unaware of what has happened to him. There are heroes of spiritual life who, when confronted with what they have long desired, turn away and keep on pursuing the goal. Buddha renounced wife, child, father, wealth, and kingdom. Renunciation is an essential trait of the successful spiritual quest. Whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all that he hath, he cannot be my disciple, says Yeshua. And whoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life preserves it. And others fell on good soil, and it produced good fruit. It bore 60 per measure and 120 per measure. As the saying goes, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And as my dear friend, the Helen Ben Bibb frequently said, you can't argue with results. Judge only by the amazing results. The proof that the soil was good consisted of only one thing. The seeds produced good fruit. For lifetimes, people bang away at religious dicta and absolutely get nowhere, yet they remain loyal. Today, huge numbers of people follow worthless gurus and practice yoga that either does nothing significant or even harms them mentally and physically, yet they remain almost hysterically loyal. They refuse refuse to look at the results or lack thereof. Of course, starting out with plenty of negative conditioning, usually from religion, they are disposed to lay the blame on themselves. Stripping away the nonsense, the principle is plain. Good soil produces good fruit, both physically and metaphysically. We should never forget this simple criterion. Alright, y'all. I'm gonna take a pause for the cause right here, and then I'm gonna see you on the next track. You already know what it is. 11 pages in the bank. Book of Tones. Be well in the name of wellness.